voice is something that would be attractive simply because,
No, that's
I don't know what kind of projections that would place on a guy from a woman's perspective, but I would imagine it's a strong man, a man that, is able to provide, or it's a man that is physically strong and can be dominating in situations or whatever the case is.
no, I completely agree with you. It's definitely like the deeper the voice, I guess it will be sexy for a woman. And not all of us are lucky to have the voice, but it has to be different. So as long as your voice is uplifted.
What the is we doing?
Good morning, everybody. This is another day, another shot. Welcome back to Shots of Info. Just a quick disclaimer. This is just for fun. And take whatever resonates with you. Leave the rest. And, we're not professional advisors by any means. This is just a conversation between me and Randy. All right? So let's.
All right, sweet. So in terms of topics for the day, in the foundation sections, we have which tonality of voice is more attractive. So that's just adding on to what we were speaking to on the previous show. On the fitness, we are talking about martial arts, just general martial arts, like what our thoughts are, which one's good to learn, which one's the best. We have any ideas to what that might be. And on the finance, we have stop loss and limits. So we spoke a little bit about it on the previous show that, you need to be able to have a good idea as to where you got to stop, or what in terms of having a plan, you should know where either you're going to cut your losses or what the limit is in terms of how much profit you want to take, especially if you're not going to be present for the trading. And news updates at the end. And that's it.
All right, so let's get it started. So talking about, going from yesterday's topic about the tonality of a voice and what it is, today let's talk about like which one is more attractive. So which tonality of voice do you prefer in a woman? And then we can talk about like men's.
Okay. Well, definitely for me, I'm probably gonna go with a more feminine voice. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with having a woman that has a masculine voice, but it's not particularly appealing to me. So I would probably stray away from that. I would say just a more feminine, softer spoken, not necessarily, that can be misinterpreted as, oh, you like women that sound feminine because, they're submissive or weak or whatever the case might be. That's not what I'm saying. To me, what I find physically attractive is a woman that can speak with a softer tone relative to what I'm speaking in. Because again, my voice is pretty deep and monotone. Usually, we have a tendency of being attracted to something that's different from what you are. And that kind of just speaks more towards, our evolution as a species. We're more attracted to diversity, differences between the humans in order to kind of expand the genetic pool so that we have more variety as opposed to just having the same thing. But yeah,
right.
That's what I like in terms of a female voice.
No, absolutely. I think most of the men's, we are attracted to like more feminine voice just because it's more appealing and it's sexier as well. And depending on the accent also, some girls have cute accents, but yeah, the same. I agree with you. I do prefer women with like more feminine voice, so like a little bit more high pitch. It's more appealing, I guess. I don't know. It's just cute, I guess. But yeah,
there's something in our in our hindbrain, our just like the primal part of our brain that's what really attracts us. That from, I guess, an evolutionary perspective, that's the thing that's that's what's persisted throughout millions of years of evolution. So that's the thing that gets us.
Exactly, and I feel like a lot of women, they have this high pitched voice. Unless they work out and they do steroids, that's when you start changing voice or you do hormones. But yeah, so that is that. And now let's go with like the men's section. Like, what do you think a woman is attracted to the most?
Right. So I would say, obviously tastes are different, right? People like different things. So I would say in a similar way as to me liking a more feminine voice, I would imagine most women prefer a more masculine voice in terms of their partner. Um, Simply put, and it's for the same reasons, right? It's different. From a male's perspective, a female's voice that's soft, that's more feminine, that's sexier, right? And I would imagine for a female, a more masculine, grounded, I wouldn't say gravelly, but deep
More deep.
voice is something that would be attractive simply because
No, that's
I don't know what kind of projections that would place on a guy from a woman's perspective, but I would imagine it's a strong man, a man that is able to provide, or it's a man that is physically strong and can be dominating in situations or whatever the case is.
no, I completely agree with you. It's definitely like the deeper the voice, I guess it will be sexy for a woman. And not all of us are lucky to have the voice, but it has to be different. So as long as your voice is like the tone of your voice is different and kind of like it's not like plain and simple as the rest, then it will be appealing for any woman, I guess. That's why I try not to lose my accent, because it's sexy at the same time. Right. Like I said, every woman or everybody has their own taste, so it's going to be different for everybody. But definitely, I would say that a deeper voice in a man, it will always be more appealing for a woman, just because it's genetics. It's part of our evolution, like you mentioned.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Good. So that covers the topic. That was very quick, very straightforward. We mentioned what tone is and how it works and how you can improve it. So you can listen to the podcast from yesterday. Cool. All right. So let's move on to the next section, which is fitness. And that will be martial arts.
Right.
I think.
All right. So
do some sort of martial arts in the past.
Yeah, we've done some martial arts. When I was younger, I used to do Taekwondo, right? So that was nice. And when I was a little bit older, so I'd say like around 18, 19, I did jiu-jitsu for a little bit of time. So, I have a decent amount of experience. Well, not a decent, like a basic entry level experience to martial arts. So from my perspective, I would say that, we've talked about it in the past, that it would be a relatively important thing to learn in terms of finding some sort of martial art that you actually enjoy and, is worth practicing, simply because you never know when a situation might present itself where you need to either defend yourself or be offensive on the offensive, right? Not be offensive, for the sake of, protecting yourself or protecting those around you or protecting your loved ones. So let me throw the question out to you. What martial art do you think is most useful to learn from the gate? Like the best one that you would think is worth having as the first one?
Well, I would talk from my personal experience, but it was be karate, because I did karate like all my years. Similar to you, I did start with Taekwondo back in Ecuador. They use a lot of feet and legs, whereas karate, I did specifically, is called Shotokan karate. I think it teaches you the foundations of life, and I think that's pretty cool. Something to learn, because karate, the way that I learned it, it was never to like start a fight. It was never to kind of like get into a fight. It was mainly about self-defense or defend. So if somebody start a fight, you just defend yourself. So that's why my sensei usually all the time used to say, like, never throw the first punch, like never, always wait for it to come, because it gives you a clear advantage over whoever you're fighting against. So in my opinion, karate has had a good influence on my life, because I took it as when I was a teen, and practices, being consistent about it. So I'm also meditating, breathing exercises, and also keep physically active is very beneficial. But I know you might have a different perspective because you did jiu-jitsu, and I know jiu-jitsu also is pretty cool, and like the way that they think and the way they approach the fighting, it's a little bit different than karate is. So I go with karate because I tried that, I did that, and I still practice sometimes.
Right. So yeah, like the thing with jujitsu is that, you know, it's predominantly not really offensive kind of style. It's defensive. It's how do you protect yourself when somebody is attacking you or trying to dominate you. The whole point is to kind of just use other people's bodies and use your body in such a way where you put yourself in the best advantageous position, especially if you're in close quarters.
Mhm.
So the whole point is just to, you know, as quickly as you can, try to de-escalate a situation by basically just making that other person immobile.
It's
And
like using locks, and that's what
literally
we
that's
do.
what it is, right? It's
So
trying to put people in chokes, trying to put people in like really uncomfortable situations where, like, if you keep applying pressure to certain points, you're going to start breaking limbs. You can start breaking arms, you start breaking legs. If they force you to, you can start breaking necks, right? Hopefully you don't get to that point, but at the end of the day, it's not meant to be lethal. It's supposed to just be a way to neutralize situations. So again, like hypothetically, let's say you're at a bar and, you know, shit is starting to pop off and people are starting to throw punches and stuff. You can very easily neutralize somebody by just putting them in a chokehold and either having them calm down because you already have them in a choke. All you have to do is apply a little bit more pressure and they pass out. And if you keep that going, you could probably just kill them altogether.
Mhm.
So, you know, in situations like that, I would say that knowing jujitsu is really cool, right?
Mhm.
Because whatever the situation that might come, well, not all of them, but most of the situations that might come, you're like, I don't really have to worry because I know how to defend myself and I know how to de-escalate the situation so that nobody really gets hurt. And, you know, if that other person is going to continue to be an asshole and try to keep escalating the situation, I can just neutralize it. I don't even have to, like, you know, bring out a weapon, or I don't have to do some crazy stuff in order to try to stop this fight. If he wants to come on to
Right.
me, he can do that and I can stop him.
Right. Yeah, definitely. I would say jujitsu. I believe, or I know it's more useful than karate is in more like realistic situations, like in real life,
Mhm.
because just the fact that you use locks, you use you don't necessarily need to get into a fight with like punching, or like throwing fists. It is
Striking.
it is a faster way to de-escalate, and there's a limit that our human bodies can resist into a fight because eventually you're gonna get tired of throwing
Right.
punches or kicks. So definitely, I feel like in realistic situations, jiu-jitsu can be more beneficial than karate, just because of like the locks and the way that you can de-escalate a situation like really quick. Especially if you're a man, you most of the time you're gonna get in some sort of trouble. If you don't look for it, they're gonna look for you.
Right.
But one thing that I love about karate, though, I need to throw this off because it's something about the values in it. So maybe
Mhm.
like the the tactics on the techniques itself might not be the best to defend yourself.
Mhm.
It all comes down to like the core basics. So some things you don't necessarily need to jump into a fight, regardless of what people think. Whether that they call you like coward or pussy or whatever. There are times in life you're gonna know where to pick a fight and when to pick a fight. So
Mhm.
going back to like the core basics, I feel like I don't know if you guys actually like started learning this core basics on jiu-jitsu, or it's just mainly about like practicing the locks. Because I never seen like a situation on like a classroom where they learning jiu-jitsu to they start talking about like core basics and what it is. Because
Yeah, I would say, you know, like any practice, you know, there's some form of like deeper meaning to it, deeper values.
right.
Kind of can get a little philosophical, getting into like the meaning of life and things like that.
Hmm.
Um, Again, most of it is based off practicality.
Right.
Yeah, I would say that there's life lessons and things like that in jujitsu, at least training it, especially if you're training for a long period of time.
Hmm.
Um, Again, like the cool thing about jujitsu is that one of the lessons that it teaches you often is that no matter how good you think you are, there will always be somebody better than you.
Oh yeah, that's for sure.
Right?
That's true.
You will never come across a situation where, especially like if obviously if you're in a room where nobody knows how to do jujitsu, obviously you'll be the one dominating everybody. But if
Hmm.
you are in the dojo, right? If you are in the class, there's no way unless you're like the instructor and you've been instructing for over 20 years, there's no way that somebody in that dojo will not beat you easily, because they have been putting in the time and the practice to learn the techniques. Not even all the techniques. A lot of the times, what most people do that have been training jiu-jitsu for a while is that they get really, really good at a couple things. It's not like they know everything. They're really good at maybe 3 to 5 things. Like they're masters at these things. And no matter how much you try to counter them, no matter what you try to do, because they're so good at what they do, they will probably 9 times out of 10 get you in the position that they want you to be in and apply whatever technique they want to apply. Because that's the thing. They have achieved mastery in this one specific thing. And I would say that, if you take that and apply that to life, it's very easy to just, if you get really good at something, you become an expert, a master, easily you dominate the competition, no matter what it is. If you're talking about work or school or whatever the case is, you can easily apply that to that and you become an expert or master, and nobody can touch you when it comes to these topics. And that's what makes you valuable, right? Because you know everything, at least in that specific part.
But I can contradict or I can argue with that. It can also put you in a clear disadvantage. Because let's say like, okay, so in fighting, so let's say you got into a situation, you're using your techniques or what you have learned. What if you don't get the person into that position that you needed to be in order to apply the pressure or in order to apply what you're expert at, right? What if you are not allowed, if you cannot do that? It puts you a clear advantage. If you're just really good at that and you don't know anything how to defend yourself on the other aspects, it's going to put you in a really good disadvantage as well. So like everything in life, it's going to have its, advantages and disadvantages. So that might be something worth looking at. So sometimes being a master and an expert on something doesn't mean that you don't need other people in life to build things or like do something. Because like, yeah, you're an expert. Let's say for technicality. Let's say I'm really good at programming. I'm really good at my major. But I'm never going to move forward in my career if I'm just good at that. If I don't improve my communication skill, if I don't know how to deal with clients, if I don't know how the marketing department of the company work, or and sales and stuff like that, if I don't know how they do, at least I have a rough idea of how to do that and understand where they come from, I will never succeed. I will never move up in the ladder where it is, building things. So 100%. I wouldn't say like apply that too much and one specific. Yes, be good at something, but don't forget about the other aspects of your life. And that's all comes down to like balance, I guess, like balancing everything, putting into a plate, your skills, the knowledge, and what you need to learn as well, because you cannot go out there and be cocky. That's a good topic.
Right. Also, one other, like, again, going back to the same thing, right? Like, try to obtain mastery in some aspects, right? But you need to have a wide breadth of knowledge on a lot of topics, just a little bit, right? So again, going back to just martial arts in general, one of the new forms of fighting, right, is mixed martial arts, where you combine different martial arts into whatever style. So, people, a lot of martial or MMA fighters usually would say, the best thing to pick up is either, jiu-jitsu or wrestling, because that gives you a base in terms of defense. But then after that, you want to, venture out and start building on your striking. So that's where people start getting into things like boxing or kickboxing or Muay Thai, where they start developing their ability to not only be defensive, but offensive. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be an expert at these different styles. It's just, find the style that most appeals to you and build a strong foundation there. Try to achieve mastery in that level. And then try to have some sort of, side knowledge or some basic knowledge on the other aspects. That way you can be well diversified, if ever you get in a situation where that expert or the mastery, or rather that place where you're a mastery at, whatever martial art it is, let's say jujitsu, let's say you can't apply that because the situation just doesn't allow it. You can use the other forms that you know some knowledge about. And then maybe with that, you can put that other person in a position where you can then use your jujitsu where you're a master at, and then boom, that's how everything kind of falls into place.
Right. One thing that you mentioned and it really appealed to me is diversity. You know, being diverse, we talk about in this podcast many, many times, is something that's going to carry on everywhere. So mixed martial arts, or I mean, martial arts is not going to be different. So now just don't focus on one martial arts. And that's something that I've been, you know, one of my goals later on is to practice mixed martial arts. So maybe 2022, not 2021. 2021 is already busy, but
Yep.
but yeah. So yeah, so I think that covers it. Martial arts overall, regardless which one you picked, is beneficial for your life. Whether on, you know, on the way that you carry on your life as a way to defend yourself from threats that, you know, you never know when they're gonna come. They're
Right.
out there. You step outside of your house or even in your house. We've seen cases like this in 2020 where, you know, sadly, like police, they just run into like somebody's house and they just kill. Like you never know when you're gonna need it, and the best way to win is to be prepared. So be prepared. Never throw the first punch. So regardless if you know it or not, never look for a fight, because like Randy mentions, you're never gonna be the best at something. All right.
Right. You never know when you might come across a guy that has a weapon, right? Even with all this martial arts, that guy pulls out a knife or pulls out a gun. You're done.
You don't know. Cool. All right. So let's time to move on to the third F of the day, which is finance, stop loss, and limits.
Right.
So I'm just gonna give a brief explanation what they are. We talked about this before, but a stop loss is kind of like it's a practice, or it's a strategy. I would say mainly. It's a strategy that you can use to your advantage when you day trading or swing trading. Now, time to time, if you're not, if you're like me, you have a busy schedule and you trade in a few hours, but you want to keep holding it, maybe for swing trading, and you don't know when it's going to be the time, like the specific time that's going to reach the peak, but you are pretty sure that it's going to reach to the ultimate height. Or maybe you don't want to lose the money and you want to stop loss, right? You want to set a limit of how much money you're willing to lose if it's a risky stop. So it's kind of like a little belt. It's kind of like every brokerage has it. You just put a stop loss and a stop. Limit. Limit is to lock in profit, and a stop loss is to pretty much take out the money.
To minimize your losses.
There you go. Minimize losses. So it's very useful. Especially if you're not checking consistently the chart. But you have kind of like a understanding, or you know how much you are willing to make out of this trade, right? For example, you take a position, like for example, I'm just going to give an example on my situation that happened to today. Okay, so I was trading JDST. It was performing really good in the morning, but as the day progressed, I was busy with my schedule, and gold started getting value. Now JDST is a bet against gold, so if gold was performing good, JDST was gonna start dropping. So that's what ended up happening. I didn't put a limit to lock in profits, so right now I'm sitting with some losses on my trade. Right, so now I had to wait. I'm gonna wait to do a further trade, a swing trade, and then trading something else in the meantime. Go ahead.
So yeah,
what do you think?
So again, going back to the example we gave yesterday with the swing trading, right? So hypothetically, let's say you have 10 stocks you're trading, you're swing trading, and you forget that last one. The whole point of a stop loss or limits is to, again, manage your positions if you're not going to be there. I mean, you can set them even if you're going to be there, just to maybe stick to a plan, because sometimes what ends up happening is that things tend to run a lot more, or things tend to drop a lot more than you would have anticipated. And if you set out a plan, like your strategy is, oh, once this thing reaches this percentage of gain from where I bought, I'm going to sell. Or if this thing drops below this percentage of where I bought in, I sell. And sometimes you just don't adhere to the plan because things are moving too quickly, and you're just like, well, I've already lost this much, might as well just stick it in order to see if it bounces back. Or, man, this thing just keeps running. Maybe this thing will just continue to run and maybe even double my expectations. The thing with the market is it's bipolar, so you really don't know what's going to happen. So for that reason, you always want to, especially if you're not going to be around, use those stop losses and limits in order for you to stick to your plan. Eventually, the whole point is for you to build consistency and find what works for you. And once you do, and once you know what that plan looks like, then you can maybe start adjusting it over time. But until you find that, you should really be adherent to your plans and stick with them through thick and thin. Don't try to deviate. Don't try to change it. Don't tweak it in any way in the middle of the trade, because that's when people have a tendency of losing their money, because they don't stick to the plan. And that's the thing with the market, man. If you don't stick to your plan, 9 times out of 10, you will probably lose money, or you won't make as much profit as you would have. Because again,
Right.
let's reverse the scenario, right? Let's say it's going up, and you see that a clear price target is up here, and right now it's sitting right here, but there's a little bit of a resistance here, and you're kind of hesitant that maybe it's going to drop from here, and you just want to lock in profits because you're scared that it'll drop and then go below where you bought in, and then you start losing money. Hypothetically, there is a chance that will happen, where it dips, right? Maybe it goes a little bit lower from where you bought in, bounces back and shoots for new highs. But because you weren't willing to stick it out, because you weren't willing to go with the plan that you made, you're not going to make that profit. And there you go again, where instead of losing money, you didn't make as much money as you should have because you didn't want to adhere to your plan. But yeah, those are my thoughts on that.
Oh, definitely. They're very useful. Most of the brokerage, I use Webull to day trade, and it's very straightforward, very, very, very minimalistic to use a stop loss and limits. So definitely check them out. I don't believe Robinhood has. Actually, no, they do,
No,
but it's a little bit more complicated to use it.
I would say it's the inverse. I would say Webull's the more complicated one. Robinhood is the easier one.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I've been trading with Webull for the longest now.
That's probably why it's simple, right? Because you've done it long enough. But like for somebody that just gets into it, I would imagine the Robinhood is simple. Webull is a little bit more complicated, right? Because you remember when you first open the app, there's like a bunch of charts, and when you go to buy, the first thing that's set is to, I think, a limit buy as opposed to a market buy. So you have to change it.
Right, but one thing that I like about Webull is that, actually, let's leave this for another topic, comparing like the brokerage that we use. Cool. All right. So last but not least, on today's episode, some news. I have few right here. So Walmart is competing against Amazon Prime using their Walmart Plus. So it's a new membership program which puts you on the road for some savings. Pretty much is the same idea about Amazon Prime, free shipping, and also like delivery of the groceries within that area that you live. If there's a Walmart around you, where it's all around the USA. Now, the New York Stock Exchange reversed its decision to delist 3 major Chinese telecom companies, something that happened on Monday. They announced that if they didn't comply with Trump's policies or what is it called, executive order, they were going to delist these 3 major Chinese telecom companies, such as Huawei. Huawei right now cannot do business in the US. So they were trying to approach the same way as well. All right. So British Prime Minister Boris Johnson ordered a nationwide lockdown until mid-February over there in the UK to combat the spread of the highly contagious new coronavirus variant. School and non-essential retails must be closed. So we talk about like the new strain of the coronavirus happening in Europe. And actually, there was a case here in the United States as well, I think it was on Colorado, but somewhere in the mid states that they caught this strain. Now we don't know the specifics about this, whether the vaccine will work for it or not, but it's a little bit more danger that starting 2021. All right. So now the new variant actually right here, the new variant has been found in infected people in several US states, including New York. Oh, damn it. It's already in New York. And I was talking about like mid-states. All right. And top business leaders press lawmakers to certify Joe Biden's victory in the presidential elections when they convene tomorrow, so which will be today, Wednesday. Slack suffered a major outage for several hours on Monday morning, disrupting work from home operations across the globe. Right, and we saw something similar on Monday morning that happened with Webull as well with Robinhood apps. So it might be something with the servers where they perform. If you know about computers, you might understand this. Skybridge Capital, Anthony hedge fund, it's launching a Bitcoin focused fund. Skybridge is down 7.5 on this year. And now that we mentioned about Bitcoin, there was an article that JP Morgan announced that it might actually reach the 135 grand thousand. Right now, Bitcoin is sitting on 31,000, if I'm not mistaken, last time I checked. Important fast food updates. McDonald's is launching new chicken sandwiches, and Chipotle added cauliflower rice for a limited time. All right, so if you're a big fan for McDonald's or Chipotle, you guys can go check them in their menus. And yeah, cool.
Sweet. So yeah, nothing too particularly interesting on my end. My trades, again, still trading my Tesla and my Neo. Well, actually just Neo at this point. And again, my goals moving forward is just day trading, making my 1 to 2% within a time frame of about, I would say 2.5 hours. So I usually stop trading around 12 or so, just so that I have the rest of the day to do whatever I want. And once I hit that target of 1 to 2%, which is usually anywhere from 100 to 250 bucks, that's it. I'm done with my trading. Besides that, the market is green, so that's great. Everything is starting to slowly come back up, which is good. I was telling Michael in terms of looking at the charts for the NASDAQ, there was a really good potential that we were going to start reversing and start trending back up towards new highs. So that seems to be the case. But, like I said, the market is bipolar. So maybe tomorrow we get something completely different and the market drops a little bit more. You always got to give a little bit of room for things to maneuver up a little bit higher or down a little bit lower, because you just really never know. But besides that, yeah, that's pretty much it.
I actually have something that I forgot to mention is that Joe Biden wants to give you a check, another similar check, a third similar check for $2,000. We'll see how that goes.
Ooh,
and we mentioned yesterday that Jack Ma was missing. He actually is not missing. In Alibaba, it's reaching, it turned around, so it's going for the heights. Well, recuperating because it had a brutal drop. Yeah, this past month. But yeah, that's it for today, guys. We will see you tomorrow, and peace.